Hi everybody, my name is John Sugimura with PinKU Japanese Street Food. Today we're going to do San-Buri salmon. So let's do rice the way my grandmother would do it. The big trick and the big secret for rice is using dashi kombu. We're going to first start off with always wiping off the salt off the dehydrated dashi kombu or seaweed, because that takes the sodium off of it. And if you don't do it, it's going to make your rice kind of bitter. I'm going to put the rice in the pan. We're going to cook it on the cooktop. I'm going to put the dashi kombu in there, and I'm going to go ahead and cover it with the water. We'll go ahead and cook off the water and we'll get the rice nice and ready, and then we'll go on to the next step. So let's do something really special with the salmon. This will take any piece of salmon, maybe even something that you're not totally proud of or isn't the freshest, but taking a piece of salmon and kind of freshening it up or sanitizing it with a little bit of rice wine vinegar on these fillets will do an incredible kind of freshening, and also the benefit of doing them is that it will kind of de-scum them. It will kind of enhance the quality of the loin by firming it up, and it will actually kind of neutralize any odor. All you have to do then is do a quick rinse and do a quick dry on the fillets. So let's take the time to prepare the produce. Really doing the produce is really probably the most significant step, because if we get this right, everything else is going to go smoothly. So for our pickles, let's do some cucumber slicing. We can do it by the slice. We're going to do it about maybe a quarter or quarter-inch thick, or go ahead and if you have a mandolin, that's what I like to use because I like precision and we like to do things real consistent. You want to have enough pickles so that on your portion you can have a nice stack. Let's go on to some green onions here. Let's cut off these roots. And we want to use white and green, so cut it all up. Thinner the better. So for the salted cabbage, what the goal is to have nice long pieces of purple cabbage. With the mandolin, if you have the tool, obviously that will make it really easy to shred. If you don't, go slowly and cut against the grain and avoid the hard core. So let's do some radishes. Let's cut off the root and leave the stem on. Because if you're lucky enough to have a mandolin, you get to hold on to that stem and that will keep you safe when you're using the mandolin. Now, check your thickness. We want them really nicely sliced thinly, and we don't want them too thick. If they're too thick, they're going to crack after they dry out a little bit or after they've been sliced for a while. Now let's do some julienne. I'm going to just stack them back up. We want to have little slices and slivers. Let's go on to the daikon. So the root we're going to have to first peel, and then we're going to do kind of the same thing what we just did with the radish here. Go ahead and restack them just like we did the other radish. And there's your julienne radish for. Let's prepare the pickles and the salted cabbage. I'm going to put the cucumbers in the bowl because one of the tricks with the cucumbers is we want to tenderize them, and we're going to tenderize them by sprinkling some salt on them and literally kind of getting them to start breaking down a little bit so that they are not quite so rigid and crisp, because there's nothing better than a nice tender cucumber. You only need to do that for a few seconds, and then we're going to rinse them off. I'm going to go ahead and pour off on a towel, and then we're going to go ahead and put the seasoning on. I like to do these as long as in advance as you can possibly do, because you want them to chill off. If you're going to do this pretty close to dinner time, go ahead and feel free to put them in your coldest spot of the refrigerator. Colder the better, and it will really get that seasoning to take on it. So now we have the tender and seasoned cucumbers, and that's going to have the sweet kind of angle. Let's go on to the cabbage. Now we're going to go for salty cabbage. And this will be the only salt source in the whole meal, and this is a really nice contrast to have something salty and crispy with the salmon. Again, we have another combination of seasoning mixture right here, and we're going to go ahead and toss it, but we're going to leave it in the seasoning right here now. Now the only thing that I want to kind of point out here is go ahead and hit it again with salt, but salt it to your taste. This should be pretty salty because you want a nice contrast, but you do what you're comfortable with. Don't rinse it, just let it sit. And when you eat it, you're going to have a nice hit of salt, you're going to have a nice hit of sweet, and then you'll have the salmon and the rice with it. So one of the things people like about my rice, they'll talk about how it has a great flavor, it has great texture, it's not starchy. And it really comes down to putting the proper amount of seasoning to the same proportion amount of rice. So let's go ahead and extract the piece of dashi kombu that we cooked the rice with, because we only want to give that flair and flavor, and the dashi kombu will take the edge off the starch already. Let's go ahead and take the seasoning And here's the little trick. What we don't want to do, and if you're a baker, you probably already know this, you don't want to put your wet liquids on top of your dry product. So what you want to do, if you have the time, just slowly make it rain and season that rice. And that way you're going to get the flavor throughout, and you're not going to have to overmix your rice. When you're done, just cut it. You don't have to mix it. We're going to mix it a couple more times before we eat. Just cut through the rice, and when it comes time to dinner, we'll do a full mix. So let's make something really special. Let's make home-brewed soy sauce, or also known as nikiri. And in here, I have tamari, sake, soy sauce, and mirin. I'm going to go ahead and add shaved whitefish, which is also called bonito. And then I'm going to use some dashi kombu again, and we're going to wipe off any of the salt from the dehydrated seaweed here. We're going to go ahead and cook this in what I call champagne bubbles. We just want to get some little bit of simmering around the edge. We don't want to cook it. We don't want to boil it, because that will make it bitter. Just a light simmer, or almost champagne bubbles right around the edge. And then we're going to let it rest for 5 minutes after we make it. So the home-brewed soy sauce has been cooking to champagne bubbles, and then it's been steeping for about 5 minutes. And you can just smell this rich, really high aroma soy sauce, and reminding you that it has only about 60% soy sauce, so the sodium on it is really low. And then with the bonito flake, or the shaved whitefish, and the dashi kombu, or the seaweed, you're getting a lot of extra flair with flavor. A little bit goes a long ways, especially with salmon. This is good enough to put on your rice or anything else if you like to use soy sauce on it. And you want to filter out the dashi kombu and the bonito flakes, so that you have just the pristine home-brewed soy sauce there. So the salmon has been kind of freshened up and ready to go. We're going to cut it up into kind of half-inch chunks. We want to cut it into big pieces so that it stays nice and moist. And there you have all your salmon ready to go. We're going to go ahead and brush, if you have that toy at home, some of the home-brewed soy sauce on here. We can also do a dip, but we don't want to be cheap on the nikiri, because this is what's going to be your seasoning for the salmon, because there's nothing else that goes on it. In the restaurant, we'll hit it with a butane torch. But at home, you probably don't have a torch, so let's move it over to the broiler. You want to have it on the top rack, and don't walk away, because this will broil up fast. We're only going to cook it to medium. You don't want to cook it more unless you have a personal preference for it, because we want it to be nice, tender, and moist. So let's put this all together. A real mix on the rice so that the seasoning gives it full flavor. I'm going to go ahead and plate this up. Put some of the salted cabbage right there. It's all about color combinations. The pickles go right here. And let's grab the salmon. So again, the salmon's broiled to about medium. And this is about a lot of salmon in proportion to everything else. You'll enjoy this because you get a nice fix of salmon. We're going to top this off with some green onions. We're going to hit it with some black sesame seeds and a combination of radish on the side there. So there you go. San-Buri salmon on top of seasoned rice with green onions, black sesame seeds, salted cabbage, and pickles. You can enjoy this at PinKU Japanese Street Food. Come by and see me.